Dexter Robot Platform, also known as the EOTP, the Enhanced ORU Temporary Platform, is there next to the dish, and then the boom is below that. Here you can see Steve installing his foot restraint onto the pallet. He'll use that to stabilize himself as they pull the boom off. And then Garrett is going to install his foot restraint onto the arm. And here you can see Steve pulling his foot restraint off the cedar cart that we took out there. Once Garrett has the foot restraint on the arm, he's going to translate over and assist Steve with releasing the boom from the pallet. Once the boom has been released, Steve will continue to stabilize it. Garrett will go ahead and ingress the arm. Steve will rotate the boom up and over what we call the goalposts on the Dexter pallet, hand the boom over to Garrett, and then Garrett will carefully maneuver the boom clear of the pallet. Once he's clear of the pallet, he's going to go ahead and reposition the boom for installation at the Z1 work site. Steve will then pick up his foot restraint, translate back over to the port cedar cart where he'll drop it off. We'll use that later when we install the pallet onto the Dexter. And then as we fly over here, you can see that one big dish antenna is the existing space-to-ground antenna on the station, and we are going to install the redundant system just starboard of it, whereas that first antenna slopes off to the side. Ours will become a new 14-foot tall, straight-up structure right next to it in the center of the space station. So Garrett, you'll see here, is about to do these big, what we call windshield wiper maneuvers over to the Z1. Once he's over at the work site, Steve will have translated over there. They'll work together to position the boom. You can see here working in the neutral buoyancy lab to practice that. Steve will then go ahead and drive the bolts. There's 2 bolts that hold the boom onto the Z1, and then Garrett will go ahead and fly back to pick up the dish. While he's gone, Steve is going to connect a couple of electrical connectors to an interface panel. He'll then grab 4 other electrical connectors that were pre-positioned for us on some previous flights, connect those to the boom, and once that is complete, if he still has time, he'll translate up the boom and remove the thermal cover from the transmit-receive box that's in the center of the boom there. Okay, in the meantime, we have Garrett, as I said, going to pick up the dish. He'll work with piers to guide himself in. There's 2 bolts that hold that dish into its support equipment on the pallet. He'll drive each of those bolts and then very carefully start to lift the dish out of that support equipment. It's a little bit of a tight space here, so they'll work together, just get clear of the pallet, then do a little maneuver out from underneath the boom of the arm, and then again the big windshield wiper maneuver back over to the Z1. When Garrett arrives at the Z1, Steve should be waiting for him at the top of the boom. They're going to, again, work together to very gently bring those 2 interfaces together. There's some very sensitive areas up the top there where the actual signal passes through from the antenna down into the boom box, that we call it. And they'll go ahead, work together, drive 4 bolts to hold the dish onto the boom. Once the dish is bolted on, there's 2 electrical connectors that need to get connected. And then just before Garrett leaves, they'll go ahead and work together to install a thermal shield around the base of the antenna. You can see that's what white section that just went on there. As soon as that is complete, we'll send Garrett back out over to the pallet to start the retrieval of the Dexter platform. Steve will then proceed to remove 2 launch locks, gimbal locks we call them, on the antenna. Those immobilize the antenna during its launch to orbit. And once he is finished with those gimbal locks, he'll go ahead, clean up that Z1 work site, drop a bag off at the airlock, and then meet Garrett back over at the Dexter for the installation of the platform. Here you can see Garrett, once he gets back over to the pallet, he's driving one of the 4 bolts here that hold the platform to its support equipment. And once that platform is released, it will again go ahead and pull that away from the pallet, and then another big sweeping maneuver just from one side of the mobile transporter over to the other side. This is kind of like going around the block to get to your next door neighbor's house. So then once Garrett's over there with the pallet, he and Steve will work together to insert 4 fasteners that hold the pallet onto the dexter. There's also a hinge pin. This platform can be rotated up during future operations into what we call a maintenance position. Once Garrett and Steve are complete with the fasteners, Garrett will egress the arm and then send that away to a position that he can later take the foot restraint off of it and clean it up. And if we have time at this point, Garrett's going to go ahead and install what we call a maintenance tether. Basically fits under a flap there on the platform. That's just to be used again for later operations if we ever need to rotate that platform up into the maintenance position. He also has to connect the electrical connector, install a couple of fuses, and then, again, time permitting, he will install the input drive into the back side of the dexter. And what that input drive allows them to do is either for the dexter itself or for an EV crew to actually rotate that pallet 180 degrees in either direction, depending on what piece of equipment you would like to temporarily stow there. While all that is taking place, Steve will have translated back over to the pallet to perform some get-ahead tasks for us. We're going to have him break torque on the batteries that are on the pallet. So for each of the 6 batteries, he'll be opening up the thermal cover and then using a ratchet wrench to release the torque just by putting 1 turn on each of those bolts, and then he'll torque it back down by hand, and that's so that we can easily use our power tool during EVAs 2 and 3 to remove the batteries from the pallet. And you can see here Steve practicing that again in the pool. Once he's broken torque on as many of the batteries as we can get through, we'd like to get through all 6, but it's not required. He'll go ahead and close the thermal cover back up, and that will be the completion of EVA1. We'll bring our bags back inside and ingress the airlock.